Hi, my name is Will Gleason. I am a percussion educator in West Michigan, and this is how you tune a drum set. So first things first, you're going to grab your tool. So you can really use any tool. You're going to kind of want to use like a T tool or a drum key, but this is specialized for it's like a multi-tool. So first thing you want to do is you want to take, if you have moon gel like this one does, you want to take it off. You want to take your O-ring off as well. Set it aside, we'll get back to that later. I like to turn my snares off. You don't have to. I just like to hear what note I'm at before I untune. Lull. Cool. And what you want to do when you're tuning a drum or untuning a drum is you're going to want to untune in a star pattern. So if I start on this one, on this lug, I'm going to want to go to this one, right? Because it goes in a star pattern. Here, 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 here. And what it's doing is it's evenly releasing tension among the whole drum so that you don't have a warped head if you're putting one on. Like this one, I'm gonna put this one right back on because I don't have a head to swap out. So you're gonna wanna evenly release the tension like you're gonna wanna evenly tension it as well. So if we get started, I just like to go in half turns, so half turn. I'm gonna go all the way around the drum and undo the whole thing. All right, I did a half turn to the whole thing. I'm just gonna keep doing half turns until it is loose. All right, so usually I like to go until they're about finger tension. What I mean by that is you can tension or untension them with your fingers. So I'm gonna go around. This one's untensioned. I'm gonna go ahead and release that all the way. So when I'm tuning a snare drum, I usually have an aim goal for the sound I wanna hit, whether that's like Steve Jordan on John Mayer's Waiting for the World to Change, or that's maybe like a higher one, like a Rehab by Amy Winehouse, that kind of snare drum. So I like to have a target goal to hit when I'm tuning a snare drum. Is basically by how much or how much you don't tension the front head. So not just the front head, the whole drum. I would like a nice high tension drum that's gonna have some nice, really sharp tones. That's kind of gonna be like a poking you in your side. I'm gonna give you a really, really nice rim shot. So we take it off. Usually if you're dealing with an old drum, there's gonna be some stuff in here, so I advise you wipe it out. There's not that much stuff in here. There's little things of dust, so I'll get that out of there, but yeah, so this is how the inside of the drum looks. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna get on the bottom head. So what I'm gonna do next, after I've cleaned the top head, cleaned the rim, cleaned the inside of the drum, is I'm gonna take the snare off. I can't get this head off unless the snare's off, because if you untighten all of this stuff, this is tensioned down. So I'm gonna untension it. Keep in mind what heads you're using as well. If you're replacing heads that offer different kinds of sound, that really also goes into what you're making, sound-wise at least. Because, I mean, some heads are built for different things. Some heads are not meant to be cranked down a ton. Some are meant for those nice, warm, low, mellow sounds, right? While others are meant to be cranked down, give you that nice slam or slap in the face when you hit it. Just gonna set that off to the side and get started on untensioning this head. Half turn again, half turn again. Generally, the rule of thumb that I found, and I like to do, is tune the bottom head less than the top head, because the batter head is the top head. It's the one you hit, it's the one you batter, right? That's gonna be the one that takes the most beating, so it's gonna need to be tensioned down a little bit more, because these little tension rods, these lug nuts, they tend to come undone. And you see how easy some of these are to finger tighten or unfinger tighten. Based on the bottom head, I only had to do like 2 or 3 rotations right there, based on I had to do 5 or 6 before. Just get off to the side. I'm just gonna unscrew these by hand at this point. All right, rims off. Head's there. It's a little dusty, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna take that little cloth from before, wipe it down. a little piece of paper towel with some wet water on it. Well, water is wet, but a little water on it should do the job. Shake it out a little bit. Make sure there's a little bit to no things in there. So let's get started on actually tuning our snare drum. So we're going to throw this head back on because I don't have replacement heads right now, but that's fine. These heads are in great condition. Only been used for a couple different months. You want to, again, where did it go? Want to get rid of all this dust on the side of here. The equipment that's maintained is going to last you way longer than equipment that's not. So as we're putting in this bottom rim on, it's really important. You can't just put it on anyway. You need to put it on with these little holes facing the snare. The snare does not keep the head tensioned. It makes contact with the head to make it rattle, which gives you that nice snare drum noise. What I'm doing now is a really important step that I like to do. Is called finger tightening, which we were doing before by undoing, but I like to get these as far down with my finger as I can until I start to feel some tension on it. Like that one, it's starting to move less and less, so I'm gonna stop right there. And I'm gonna go around all of these, and I'm gonna do it until I get a nice even slate of evenly tensioned, lightly tensioned lug nuts. This is especially important with a brand new head, just because new heads don't have that much stretch in them. So they don't come pre-stretched. So if you over tension a brand new head, you might pop it. There's a very real possibility you can pop that head by over tightening, overextending. You just want to give it a nice, easy, every couple of days, just crank it down until you get the sound you want, and it'll stick that way. And once you already have a head that's been done by that, you can take the head off and you can kind of crank it up from day one to the sound you want. So as we have right here, I can crank this up as much as I want because this head has already been on a drum, it's already been tightened, it already has that stuff we need. So I'm not gonna put the snare on quite yet. Since I have a nice even slate, I'm gonna go ahead and start tensioning these down half spins at a time. Now I'm not gonna completely bone this drum right away, just for the simple fact of I don't want to overdo it and over tighten it just for me to have to go back later when I'm on the top head and I hit it and it sounds awful. That will happen. I doubt this will sound good right away. So we just want these heads down enough to the point where they're making contact with the drum. I would not ever play on this. I would probably not play with this head on my bottom yet because it's not tensioned. Not fully, at least, not to where I want it. So we're gonna get the top head on, even though this isn't done yet. I'm gonna get the top head on and I'm gonna get the snares in, and then we're gonna go from there. And the reason I have the snare undone is so that when I tighten this, I get to see where the snare lies. Because if I tighten this down right now and then I try to pull it even more by extending the snare, it's not gonna sound good. It's just gonna, and it's also not gonna close. So I like to open it so I can get some room and I can see where I'm at. Cool, sounds awful. And usually that's never perfect either, so we'll probably have to go and readjust that, that snare placement as well. Throw our top head. So this is important for me, because when I'm playing, I like to have the snare near me. So if I need to kick it off, or I'm writing for a kid who needs to kick it off, I'm gonna have it near him so he can flip that off just when he needs to for that part of the music. It gives you really fast access to your snare, and it gives you also a lot of texture to any piece you're writing it for. All right, it's back on. We're gonna put this, I like to put the head, or the logo of the head, like directly across from this snare. Throw this rim back on. Make sure when you throw down these rims, you don't lose these lug nuts because they are very hard to find, and these washers in between are even harder to find. So some people, when they reinsert lug nuts, they like to use Vaseline because it makes for easier like tightening and untightening. Not me though, I'm built different. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I understand the concept of it. Once again, I'm finger tightening all of these. Nice. All right, cool. So now I feel like I'm in a nice neutral state on these heads. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start cranking down this top one to see the response I get from the bottom one. I know the bottom one's not very tight and the snare placement's not very good, but I can still hear the note. I can still know what note that is on the top. Not yet though, because that's not a note. I mean it is, but I can't hear it. All right, I can feel this snare is kind of fighting me when I tighten it, so I know I'm getting to the area in which I want to go. All right, starting to sound like a drum. Flip it back over. So now that we finished with the drum, the actual drum head itself, we're gonna go on the snare. It wasn't exactly placed the way I want it before, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tighten it up because I'm hitting it, I'm getting a nice snare sound, but I'm not exactly still getting what I want. So I'm gonna fine tune it just a little bit. Adjusting side placement and all that kind of stuff is a very minute detail, but I find that in like my jazz experience that I really think it makes a difference. So I like to take the time and do this kind of stuff. Some people think it's unnecessary, but I do not. Flip it back over, see how it sounds. I am assuming terrible. Not awful, but that sounds more like something that would be played in a march than a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert, so not going with that. Nice little tool you have on the snare side, I'll switch around, is that you can adjust how tight or how loose your snares get right here, just by flipping that down. I can go with this all the way tight, I mean all the way loose. Snares won't even or barely touch at all, right? Or I can tighten it all the way. And we'll get some snare sound, right? All right, I'm still not getting quite the sound I want, but we're on the right track. We're getting resonance. When I hit through the top head, sound goes to the bottom head. It's resonating these snares, they're activating. We're on the right track. Now is just time to fine tune this kind of stuff. Some people like to pitch tune their snares by like actual note, like pull out the tuner. I've done that a couple times. I'm not the biggest fan. It takes a little bit too long for me, but if that's your thing, go ahead. I'm getting to that higher sound I'm looking for, but I'm not a big fan of the ringing that's going on. You can hear that kind of overtone ring. I'm not a big fan of that. So that was the reason why we had the O-ring in the first place, is to stop some of that ringing, right? That's a huge difference. Without it, we have, with it, we have, I'm hearing a whole lot less ringing. Put some moon gel right here. Rotate this snare drum back my way. And I have a really nice dry snare drum. It's very sharp. I'm liking what I'm hearing. I want a little bit more out of my bottom head though, so I'm gonna flip it back over. I'm gonna deactivate my snares. Shove the stick under there. And since we tension these, this isn't gonna come loose no matter how many sticks I put under it. I'm gonna do small turns. I think I'm gonna do these all around the drum twice. Okay. I don't hate it. I'm getting a nice snap out of the snares, which is exactly what I want to hear for this kind of sound. Out the O-ring and the moon gel. That nice, snappy, sharp snare. I'm liking what I'm hearing from that. Throw that O-ring back on there. Throw that moon gel. And the purpose of the O-ring is to absorb some of the sound and stop some of the vibrations, which is causing the ringing on the inside. As you saw when we opened, there was nothing in the drum that's causing ringing. It's strictly the relationship between the top head, the bottom head, and the snares, which is causing that overtone. So what we do is we put these two things. Moon gels is just a sound dampener. It absorbs a lot of that kind of stuff. We get a nice snare drum sound. So we're gonna be moving on to tom 2. And the way I like to number toms, I got tom 1, tom 2, tom 3. Super easy. When I'm writing for a kid or I'm teaching a kid, I'm just, hey, this is on tom 2. They go straight to tom 2. It's easy to number them like that. So what we're gonna do is we have a new head to put on this one. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna change the head, and I'm gonna show you guys how I go about that. We have our brand new head standing right here. Just gonna leave it off to the side for now. We obviously don't need it yet. There's already a head on here. So we're gonna do it like we did before. Half turns until we get loose enough to the point where I can untighten these with my fingers. Unlike snare drums, these only have 6 total lugs, so they're a lot less work to take off, and they're also a lot less tension than a snare drum head. All right, finally, we're there. Go around and untighten all of these by hand now. The good thing about toms is once you get to a certain point of tension in your head, you can freely loosen these with your drum key without being in fear of warping the head. All right, now that it's off, take this, eat in the other room. We don't need it anymore. We're gonna take our mute out, just to make sure it's cool. Wipe away all the cobwebs with the little spiders on them. What we're gonna do is we're gonna replace the muffler that was in here, the dampener, just to make sure we can get some dampening on our toms. We're gonna line it up, sit down, finger tighten like there's no tomorrow. So the lugs on these toms are a little bit different in the sense that when I finger tighten them, I get about that much space between I start to get some serious tension on them. Unlike the snare drum where it would go all the way down and then start to tension. So in this case, I'm gonna find my tool. And I consider this a neutral slate. So like right now I have a neutral slate for me to start tuning my drum. So I'm just gonna start with half turns. Since these lugs are a little loose because I can't tighten them that more, I'm just gonna try to stick to a really strict version of this. And I consider this a neutral slate. So like right now I have a neutral slate for me to start tuning my drum. So I'm just gonna start with half turns. Since these lugs are a little loose because I can't tighten them that more, I'm just gonna try to stick to a really strict version of this. It's gonna take a while because we're not at the point where we can have the lug meet the hardware yet. But we wanna stay disciplined, just stick to the half turn so we can get a nice neutral slate for us to fully tension our head on. The way I do it is I do it in a star pattern. So like I'll go from lug 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or sometimes I'll do 5, 6. As long as you tension the one directly across from it, no matter what order, it doesn't matter if I do this one or this one first. As long as you do that, you should be okay. We're starting to hear some crack off of this head. So we know we're getting to where we want to go. Like I said earlier though, this one's a little bit more loose because I did something wrong, but I just overcompensated. But I don't want to tension this head too much. Even if there's a little wrinkle in it, I don't want to overtension this head because if I overtension this head today, playing that tomorrow, it breaks. So you can see there's a little bit of a wrinkle right here. Even though I've been doing this all consecutively, right? It just happens sometimes. It's a nice dampen on that, right? So I'm only gonna go a little bit more and it's gonna sound out of order for the rest of the toms, but I don't wanna overcrank these in one day because I don't want the head to snap. Just spent like $40 on brand new heads. The last thing you wanna do is have to go spend another 40. So in context of the order of the toms, if I throw this moon gel back on here, right above my logo, because that's where I like it, it doesn't sound awful. This head sounds fantastic with this muffle on it, but it doesn't quite sound in order, but that's because it's a brand new head. So we're gonna give it some time, we're gonna throw it back on, and we'll be good to go. And what you're going to do is you're going to want to repeat this for all of your toms. It doesn't matter whether you have 3 toms, 4 toms, 5 toms. The principle is going to be mainly the same, but tune them slightly differently so you can get that nice dynamic contrast of sound and texture. We're going to be tuning the bass drum, and then we're going to put a mute on as well. This drum head itself is already pretty well muted. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to use the mute. I guess we'll see how it sounds. So we're going to do the same thing we did before. There's way less tension on these heads, so I'm not going to need to do nearly as much as I was doing before. I just did the wrong order, but you know what? We'll be all right. Start down here from here on. That works for me. I think the best in the industry right now is Evans. Their consistency has been fantastic, whether it be through my marching career or when I've dabbled in drum set. They have been consistently great. I think their Onyx heads are some of the best in the business. I mean, I've been playing on System Blue hybrid heads since 2016. I think they're the best in the business, and I really enjoy the sound they make. I think you can do some great stuff with Evans. I don't think there's any other option. All right, cool. So we got this thing off. Set that boy to the side. Old head. Set that down. We're not going to eat it this time. So, some of you might be confused, as you should be. Pillows are great forms of dampeners. They absorb a lot of sound, and obviously a drum this big, even when you hit it just a little bit, it's going to create a monumental amount of sound. So if you thought this was too much, there needs to be a pillow in there, and it still sounds kind of meh. So we're going to see if we can work some magic here by putting a new head on it. We're going to have the logo facing upwards, because if I have the beater pad, which you can see right down here on this little black one, it's going to be right in the center, and this drum is going to be sitting towards me. This is going to be the center. So we're going to grab this, we're going to center it to the best of my ability, because I'm not perfect. Grab our rim, make sure she looks good. I'm going to throw her back on. So as much as I would love to sit here and tighten these all the way down by finger tightening, I will not do that. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to make my job just a little bit easier and go until I feel a large amount of tension, kind of like I did with the tom. All right, it looks like the tension starts, like the snare drum, when the lug meets the hardware. A really great and easy way to do this is if you have a T-tool, which is kind of like one of these, but it has 2 bars sticking on the side. You can really get your hand around it a lot better. But this is what I came rocking today. And since I'm finger tightening these, I'm not going to go in a star pattern, just because that would take way too much time. And I'm not applying enough pressure to this head for that to warp it. Because like I was doing with the other ones, I'm just getting this to a neutral state, to where there's some light tension on it or no tension at all, and it's just put on. It's a very neutral state. It's not tuned to it has a natural pitch, but we are not tuned to a note outside of where it's at right now. All right, cool. All right, nice neutral state. I'm gonna go. We do full turns for these ones. don't need too much tension on this head. It's already sounding like a bass drum, and we've only tuned it just a little bit. So I'm gonna go around just one more time, just a little bit more. All right, I like that. All right, now we're gonna flip it on over. We don't have a replacement head for the other side, but I am gonna tune it down and then tune it back up. So what are we at up here? I'm hearing a little rattling. Decent tension on it, so it's not because it's loose. All right, I'm gonna put these down in neutral, or what I call neutral at least. The good thing about a T-key, if you have one, is that you can spin it a lot better than you can spin this one, since it has so much more balance, and it stops as soon as it feels pressure. And it stops when it feels the same amount of pressure on every lug. It's really nice. Right. And once you're done tuning it, to your liking of course, just put it up, connect your bass drum pedal, and all you want to do is just play your favorite bass drum pattern. So, I don't know, like Bill Withers' Lovely Day, right? Cool. I like how it sounds. You're getting nice volume. Obviously, if you turn your snare off,